Representative Jabron of the 34th.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and good morning.
Good morning to you, madam.
So nice to see you up there.
Nice seeing you as well.
I have a few questions for the proponent of the bill, please, through you.
Please frame your questions.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to go back to the question that Representative O'Neill had asked about, which is in line 11, Madam Speaker, and it talks about the consular report. And I found the website after Representative O'Neill had talked about it, and it does talk about the report for a U.S. citizen and the parent of a child born out of the United States that you need to document your child's U.S. citizenship with a consular report of birth abroad. My question to the proponent of the bill through you is, what is the other consular report that's referred to in the bill? Through you, Madam Speaker.
Representative Candelaria, will you respond, sir?
Through you, Madam Speaker, let me just go to the actual bill. Through you, Madam Speaker, can the gentle lady please cite the line for me where she's reading out of? Through you, Madam Speaker.
Representative Jabron.
Sure. Through you, Madam Speaker, I'd be happy to. It's line 11, item C. Through you.
Through you, Madam Speaker, consular report of applicant's birth in a foreign country. Through you, Madam Speaker, to my knowledge, that report is a report that any individual can acquire, a report that basically states that the individual was born in a foreign country. To you, Madam Speaker.
You still have the floor, madam.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank the representative for that answer, but again, I'll state that everywhere I've looked, I see a consular report that's referenced in many different websites, and it's actually called a consular report of birth abroad. I cannot find another separate type of report. This one, consular report of birth abroad, references births of a child born out of the United States to document the child's U.S. citizenship by one or two parents. So through you, Madam Speaker, my question to the good representative is, what is the other consular report that he's referring to in this line? Through you, Madam Speaker.
Representative Candelaria.
Through you, Madam Speaker, the good gentleman lady has been talking about the report and what she has found on the Internet, which I don't have access to the Internet currently right now. But I'm assuming that within that research, it doesn't state otherwise, that it cannot be acquired by anyone that doesn't have, by anyone that is not a child of U.S. citizens. So my assumption is that anyone that goes before the consulate can request a copy of this report. Through you, Madam Speaker.
Representative Jabron.
Okay, Madam Speaker, I thank the good representative for that answer, and I'm willing to go along with that. Although, I would just say that we're talking about the primary proof of identity in that paragraph. But we can come back to that or not. I have several other questions, Madam Speaker. I'll go to those. In line 20, section E, it talks about a baptismal certificate or any similar document. Through you, Madam Speaker, can I please have a couple of examples of what a similar document may be?
Representative Candelaria.
Through you, Madam Speaker, any other similar document will be a confirmation certificate that you have completed your confirmation. That's my interpretation of that specific language as is connected to the baptismal certificate. Through you, Madam Speaker.
Representative Jabron.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So just to clarify to the good representative, that similar document would reference a religious document. Through you, Madam Speaker.
Representative Candelaria.
Through you, Madam Speaker, if the words preceding similar document talk specifically about a baptismal certificate, that doesn't mean that has to be religious. It could be a document that issues someone's rebirth into the faith, and may be considered the baptismal certificate within another specific non-religious entity. Through you, Madam Speaker.
You still have the floor, madam.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I appreciate that answer. Some of my other questions going to line 22 in the bill, Madam Speaker. It talks about electronic mail, and it talks about that mail, both electronic and a piece of mail, would need to be dated. Through you, Madam Speaker, how would the good representative have an electronic piece of mail dated? What would constitute a dated electronic mail? I'm just curious on how that would be obtained. Through you, Madam Speaker.
Representative Candelaria.
Through you, Madam Speaker, as I alluded to previously, document can be electronic piece of mail may be as I alluded earlier, could be a utility bill that you could acquire through a website, and that will have specific dates on it. It could be your credit card statement of the day when your payment is due, and that can be construed also as a form of providing proof of date on the document. So I think there might be several options under that specific statement that may qualify as electronic piece of mail. Through you, Madam Speaker.
You still have the floor, madam.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank the good representative for that answer. I guess when I first read that part of the bill, I initially thought, geez, they could not be talking about kind of spam email or other things, and I was trying to picture what the electronic mail, what the form would be, and I think I have a better picture of that now. Thank you for your answers. Through you, Madam Speaker, I'm curious as we get down into line 29, talks about a bank transaction receipt showing the bank's name, and I just want to make sure that that does not include an ATM receipt. Through you, Madam Speaker.
Representative Candelaria.
Through you, Madam Speaker, can you point to that line item one more time for me, please?
Representative Gibran.
Sure, I'd be happy to, Madam Speaker. It's in the end of line 28, the beginning of line 29. It's item B, a bank statement or a bank transaction receipt showing the bank's name, and I'm looking to make sure that that does not infer a simple ATM small receipt that one might get using a debit card. Through you, Madam Speaker.
Through you, Madam Speaker, a bank transaction receipt can be a deposit receipt. It can, or if the ATM issues a receipt, that can be construed as taken as a receipt, but it has to have the bank's name and the bank's mailing address within that receipt. Through you, Madam Speaker. And
You still have the floor, madam.
Great. Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I appreciate that answer. Also underneath that in line E, I was surprised to read that an undocumented resident could actually supply annual benefit summary from the Social Security Administration. And through you, Madam Speaker, I'm looking to verify, in fact, do we have undocumented residents who are receiving Social Security in this state? Through you, Madam Speaker.
Representative Candelaria.
through you, Madam Speaker, not to my knowledge.
You still have the floor, madam.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So I guess I would follow up on that. If we don't have undocumented residents in Connecticut who are receiving Social Security, why was it important for the developer of, the proponent of this bill to include that in line 32? Through you, Madam Speaker.
Representative Candelaria.
If the gentlelady will give me just 1 second, through you, Madam Speaker. Through you, Madam Speaker, to answer the gentleman's lady, currently that's part of the document checklist for identity verification that the Department of Motor Vehicles currently have posted that this is part of one of their acceptable forms of identification. Through you, Madam Speaker.
You still have the floor,
I'm
madam.
sorry. Through your Madam Speaker, of residency. I apologize.
You still have the floor, madam.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And just to clarify, I think what I just heard the good representative say was that this was originally part of the documentation that was approved through the Department of Motor Vehicle, and they kind of just took that language and maybe, was it an oversight? Was it purposeful to put it in there, or was it just a kind of a copy and paste of existing language through DMV? Through you, Madam Speaker.
Representative Candelaria.
Through you, Madam Speaker, I guess within the drafting of the language, the drafter of the bill may have included that specific language, seeing it that is currently part of the documentation checklist. Through you, Madam Speaker.
Representative Gibran, you still have the floor, madam.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you for that answer. I think for my constituents, they might be a little surprised to read that part of the bill, and I'd hate to give any of our residents in Connecticut who may see that and assume, like I just did, that we have undocumented residents who receive Social Security payments in the state of Connecticut. But in that same area, Madam Speaker, we see that the bill, that the proposal here, you have to live in the state of Connecticut for 90 days, and yet I see a lot of language in this section of the bill that talks about 12 months, providing a proof of 12 months. So through you, Madam Speaker, I don't understand why that there's verbiage about 12 months in this section of the bill when they only have to be here for 90 days, and I don't understand what how they cross. And if the good representative can explain that to me, I'd appreciate it. Through you.
Through you, Madam Speaker, I believe it is trying to be parallel to current law. Through you, Madam Speaker.
You still have the floor, madam.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. On the next page, Madam Speaker, when I go through the bill, on lines 53 through 56, it talks about filing an affidavit with the Commissioner of the Department of Motor Vehicles that the applicant has filed an application to legalize his or her immigration status, or will file such an application as soon as he or she is eligible to do so. And I have two questions on this section of the bill for the proponent. My first question would be, what is the time frame in line 56 of as soon as he or she is able to do so? Through you, Madam Speaker.
Representative Candelaria.
Through you, Madam Speaker, that may be that luckily the federal government passed immigration reforms that allow the individuals to do so and applying through that process. Through you, Madam Speaker.
You still have the floor, madam.
I'm sorry, Madam Speaker. I only heard part of that answer. If the good representative would repeat himself.
Excuse me, Representative Candelaria. Can we take the conversations outside? It's difficult to hear the remarks. Thank you. Representative Candelaria, would you proceed, sir?
Through you, Madam Speaker, if federal government passes immigration reform that allows, within certain provisions, to grant these individuals a pathway through citizenship, that will be the process that they will go through, and that's what the language actually states for. Through you, Madam Speaker.
You still have the floor, madam.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So to clarify through you, would this mean then if they hadn't yet filed their application yet officially, could they still then apply for their license? I would assume that the answer to that is yes, but I'd like to be corrected if I'm wrong. And then following up that, if they receive their license but they have not yet filed their paperwork for their application for immigration status, do they still get that license, or do they have to wait until they have indeed filed? Through you, Madam Speaker.
Representative Candelaria.
Through you, Madam Speaker, the way the language is stated, the individual would acquire the driver's license, although they are affirming under the affidavit that they will apply as soon as they're able to do so. Through you, Madam Speaker.
You still have the floor, madam.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I'm going to follow up on that question because I think it's an important one. So they get the license, they still have not filed. What is the benchmark or the process for DMV to double back to make sure they indeed then have filed within a reasonable amount of time? Through you, Madam Speaker.
Representative Candelaria.
Through you, Madam Speaker, understanding that the DMV is so burdened with driver's license renewal, current registrations, the bill does not burden upon the Department of Motor Vehicles to do a secondary check to ensure that they have filed, or that there has been a process that has been established through the federal government that allows them to apply. Through you, Madam Speaker.
Representative Gibran.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. You know, this is one part of the bill I think that a lot of my colleagues believe is that step in the right direction that we talk about. We want to help these residents. And I noticed in the fiscal note, we're talking about hiring 18 additional employees, so where's the burden? Through you, Madam Speaker.
Representative Candelaria.
Through you, Madam Speaker, I think the burden lies where, as we established the REAL-D Act, the Department of Motor Vehicles now has more rigorous requirements to identify and comply with the federal REAL-ID Act. No new employees have been allotted to that process, and what that has done, it has extended the time frame for and the wait lines within DMV. What this bill actually does, it addresses not only the current people that can qualify through this bill, but also addresses the issue that wasn't addressed when the REAL-ID Act was established. They were promised specific employees, and these employees, they never were hired. So I think that the additional 18, still there is a burden within that process, and what this does just alleviates it more. Through you, Madam Speaker.
You still have the floor, madam.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So would it be correct to say that, in fact, there is no process to verify that the undocumented citizen has, in fact, obtained or attempted to obtain legal status? Through you, Madam Speaker.
Representative Candelaria.
Through you, Madam Speaker, it is the intent of this bill to issue a driver's license for driving purposes only, and not for the Department of, or the staff of the Department of Motor Vehicles to really get boggled with federal immigration laws. Through you, Madam Speaker.
You still have the floor, madam.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And now I'm going to go back and look at the beginning of that section 45. It says, notwithstanding any provision of the general statutes or any regulation, the Commissioner of Motor Vehicles shall not decline to issue a motor vehicle operator's license who meets the requirements. And then it goes on to say, if such applicant A submits proof of residency in the state, B submits either two forms of the primary proof that we talked about before, or C files an affidavit. So when I read this bill, Madam Speaker, clearly to me, this is part of the deal. Part of the deal is, in fact, that they have to file that affidavit, that they're going to file as soon as they're able to, or they have filed. And I think that for our residents of this state, it's very important to know that the spirit, not just the intention, the spirit as well, is being followed up on. So again, through you, Madam Speaker, based on the answers of the good representative, is it a fair statement to say that in fact, on line 53, Part C is not necessarily a requirement because there's no verification of that process? Through you, Madam Speaker.
Representative Candelaria.
Through you, Madam Speaker, the requirement lies within the individual filing the affidavit with the Department of Motor Vehicles. Through you, Madam Speaker.
You still have the floor, Madam.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I won't continue to split hairs on this issue, but I really think that, you know, you say what you're going to do and you do what you're going to say. You know, it's kind of like when I tell my kids you got to clean the bathroom. I didn't tell them they had to clean the shower, but that's part of the bathroom. So when you don't clean the shower, you didn't clean the bathroom. I think it's just part of this. We have it in language in C. It clearly says that they have to do that, but yet we're not making sure. Nobody's going to double check and pull back the shower curtain. And I just think that, you know, we have a due diligence here. But I'll leave that and move on, Madam Speaker, in the interest of time. That's okay, I don't have to do that if you don't want me to. When we get down to, you know, line 62 and line 63, I just want to verify again the system of checking for convictions of felonies. I remember the debate on the gun bill, and we talked about that NICS check system, and it didn't just check the state of Connecticut, it checked all over. So I'm a little perplexed on why this section of the bill only deals with the state of Connecticut. Through you, Madam Speaker, if the good representative could explain why we're only concerned with the state of Connecticut. Is a different system, or maybe we don't have enough funds to tap into the other system? Through you, Madam Speaker.
Representative Candelaria.
Through you, Madam Speaker, the Department of Motor Vehicles, based on their recommendations, stated that they can have the capability to verify within the state of Connecticut without adding an additional cost to the bill within this line item. Through you, Madam Speaker.
You still have the floor, Madam.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Well, that's kind of an interesting question. Interesting answer about cost, because I'm looking at the fiscal note and there certainly is a cost. As a member of the Appropriations Committee, we hear a lot about why we can't spend money and why we need to spend money on good programs, education, etc. And I would think that this is in our citizens' best interest to know if we're about to give a special privilege to a deserving citizen, undocumented citizen in the state of Connecticut, but yet we're not sure if they're a felon in the other states of the United States of America. And I would think that's worth the extra dollars compared to these fiscal notes that we see here in front of us. So my question to the good proponent of the bill through you is, did the DMV give that as part of their testimony, that they were only interested in providing that to save money? Through you, Madam Speaker.
Representative Candelaria.
Through you, Madam Speaker, no, not through testimony.
You still have the floor, madam.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And through you to the good proponent of the bill, how did you obtain that information?
Representative Candelaria.
Through you, Madam Speaker, based on conversations with the department.
Representative Gibran.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Just to clarify, was that based on conversations with the commissioner? Through you, Madam Speaker.
Representative Candelaria.
Through you, Madam Speaker, if my recollection is correct, there was individuals in the room. I cannot really per se say who it said it, but it was said at the table with several staff from the Department of Motor Vehicles. Through you, Madam Speaker.
Representative Gibran.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And again, I would point out that that's the second, I think, real flaw in this bill. We should have a right to know if somebody's a convicted felon, certainly in this day and age with technology in another state, before we give them this privilege. But again, I'll pass and keep going through the bill. Further on in the bill, Madam Speaker, it talks about the adult instruction permit or youth instruction permit in line 74. And as the now proud mom of an 18-year-old daughter who I personally gave driving lessons to at 16 and went through that process, I'm a little familiar with the shakes of a new mom and a teenage driver, but I'm also very familiar with the restrictions placed on the teenage driver that we have now in this state. So through you, Madam Speaker, I'd like to know if those same restrictions that are placed on a teenage driver, newly licensed resident, are the same restrictions that will be applied to the newly undocumented citizen in Connecticut. Through you.
Representative Candelaria.
Through you, Madam Speaker, current law or current regulations will still apply to those youth. Through you, Madam Speaker.
You still have the floor, madam.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So just to clarify, maybe for people who like me, when we got our driver's license, we were ready to go. We could put 7 people in our car and off we would go. That's not the case today. So through you, Madam Speaker, if there is a teenage undocumented driver, would that teenager, in fact, have to drive only with a parent or a legal guardian or an adult over 18 for the first 6 months, I believe? Maybe it's a year. Through you, Madam Speaker.
Representative Candelaria.
Through you, Madam Speaker, the gentlelady is correct. Through you.
You still have the floor, madam.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I'm not aware, but if somebody's over 18, maybe the good proponent of the bill can answer this question. If someone's over 18 but they're a new driver, do they also still have a single passenger restriction and a nighttime restriction? Through you, Madam Speaker.
Representative Candelaria.
Through you, Madam Speaker, the gentlelady is also correct.
Representative Gibran.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I think that's the last question I have. You know, I have a lot of questions on the bill, and I really appreciate the representatives' willingness to answer them. But I have a little story to tell, too. You know, my mom actually came to the United States when she was 26 from England. And I was talking to my mom this afternoon, geez, what did you have to do to get what you needed to be a successful United States citizen? And I was pretty surprised at the level of background she had to go through. And this is 1967. When she was in England, she had to have a sponsor. So my grandfather agreed to be her sponsor. And after that, she had to go through a lot of steps. One was providing every place she had lived from 1942 to 1967, including complete addresses. In addition, she had to provide every group, political or otherwise, that she'd ever been involved with, including the Brownies. She had to take a physical, including a test for syphilis and TB. She had to supply a complete medical record. And after all that stuff was given, then she had to meet the FBI in London so they could then grill her on all the answers she'd already given. After that, and it was cleared, she was able to get her green card and come to the United States. So she did. She came to the United States, and I was born about 3 years later. After that, she went through a process then to become a citizen, and I remember her going to those classes. She had to be here for at least 5 years, not 90 days, 5 years. And she had to take a test to prove that she knew American history. All of that and her green card in order to get settled into the United States. And it wasn't easy. My mom then became a single mom. She had no real friends. She'd only been here a couple years. All of her relatives, including her mom and dad, lived in England, and off she started. So I know, too, that it's not easy. But as a new legislator here, I have to tell you, watching the process through new baby eyes is a little eye-opening for this new legislator, and let me tell you why. We've had 4 important bills in the very short time that I have been here, and each one of those has taken a process unlike what I was told when I watched that video that we all watch about how a bill becomes a law. Well, that is not the video that goes to the 4 bills that we've been talking about this section, because I'd like to see that new video. The first one was the gun bill. We went through ESERT. I didn't hear a sing-along song for that when I was in 5th grade. Next one was a GMO bill. That's very important to my constituents. I supported that bill in public health. But again, how a bill becomes a law video isn't about that either, because that became a strike-all amendment in the Senate on an egg bill. Next, we have this bill, the undocumented license bill. Again, strike-all. We're going to put it on a DMV bill. I'm not singing 5th grade how a bill becomes a law here either. And lastly, I'm hearing that we're going to have a spending cap discussion. And again, it's not how a bill becomes a law. So I'm watching how this process is working as amended, and I just wanted to bring that up because I think process is important, Madam Speaker. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam.